I'm going to show you in this video 14 steps you could take in order for you to plan out your project. Step number 1, you need to find out what it is that your boss wanted. Is it to fix a problem? Is there something wrong that needs to be corrected? What does the outcome look like? What does it look like right now? You're going to need to find this information out. If it's an opportunity that they're trying to capture, then what does the end result look like? What is it that they're trying to gain? What is the physical outcome that they would like to see? Find out if there was a business case that you should be reviewing or a feasibility study that was done. Is it a statement of work? Is it a contract? Is it a strategic mandate? Find out what information exists and take it home and read it. Step number 2, develop a project charter. A project charter is sometimes called a project initiation document or a project brief, and it's a 1-page or 2-page document that includes all of the high-level objectives of the project. Things such as, why are we running the project, like the justification, what is the end product, how much time are we going to have on it, how much is the budget, are there any key dependencies, are we making any assumptions, who are the key stakeholders in the organization that will support you on it, are there some key milestones that they're looking to achieve. Step number 3, you need to start identifying the stakeholders. What is a stakeholder? A stakeholder is anyone who has anything to do with this one project. They're either going to be positively or negatively affected by this one project, or they are going to they're probably going to be positively or negatively affecting your project. So they could be a decision maker, a regulator, a contributor, a technical resource, a department head, a supplier. Anyone who is going to have anything to do with this one project is a stakeholder. You should try to identify your stakeholders from the inside out, from the people who are going to be working on developing the product of the project, all the way out to the organization and outside to your customers or suppliers or representative of that. Go to step number 4. Start preparing your project management plan. You probably sometimes have to have a team to help you with this, and you have to spend a few days up to a few weeks to get all the necessary details for you to put together a final plan. Starting the plan is just one thing, and you're going to have a lot of subsidiary plans that are going to go into this project management plan. So now let's go into step number 5. From your stakeholder list that you made, that you've identified, you need to start collecting requirements from those stakeholders. So a requirement, in case you're wondering, is either a condition or a capability. A condition means it's something that is put as a constraint on your project. It's a beginning or an end date, a specific budget that you can't go over, a compliance requirement, working hours requirements, language requirements. These conditions are not going to be showing in the final product, in the looks of the product. What will show will be the capability. And the capability requirements, those are the ones that talk about what the product does, right? So does it go 500 rotations per minute? Is it 8 feet tall? Is it made out of plastic? So these are the descriptive items of your final product. So you want the conditions and you want the capabilities, and these will be your requirements. Make sure you include quality and safety requirements and communication requirements and resource requirements. These are all part of the requirements. Don't just focus on the final product, the physical product. Think about what it takes, and what it takes to actually manage this one project. And these are called project requirements. So we have the product requirements. That's what the product needs to have for specifications. And we have the project requirements or project management requirements, which could be resources you need, research that you have to do, meetings that you got to run, and so on. So these are your project management requirements. Collect all of these requirements and go to the next step, which is step number 6, and that's to develop your scope statement. The scope statement talks about what the end product is that you're going to be delivering and what else you're delivering with that. Are you delivering some coaching, training? Are you delivering some technical manuals along with it? What are you going to hand over? And those tend to be bulletized in the scope statement. The scope statement can be turned in with the list of requirements in order to make it more clear. In the scope statement, we also write what is excluded. If you think your customer or your sponsor is going to imagine some end product having some additional specifications that you have not planned for, then be very clear that these are not, state them in the exclusions, that these are not part of the scope deliverables. It is time to plan out how this is going to be executed, and that takes us to step number 7, which is to create your work breakdown structure. The work breakdown structure, called sometimes just the WBS, It's similar to an organizational chart. You're taking all of the work and you're breaking it down into smaller pieces. So you could break it down by the nature of the work. A WBS represents all of the work that is going to be delivered, but it is broken down into smaller, tinier pieces that makes it easier to manage. So after you do your WBS, you go to step number 8. Step number 8 is to look for what resources will be required. For every one of these WBS work packages, underneath there's going to be activities that will need to be done to deliver that one package. So typically what I would do, what most projects do, is that every piece is assigned to a team lead who then has their own resources or team that would be doing the activities for that one task. If it's a contractor, then the contractor will tell you what sorts of activities they will be doing. They have their own team or resources that will be working on it. Then let's go to step number 9. Step number 9 is to develop your project schedule. The best way to do it is using software like Microsoft Project or Primavera, but you got to develop your schedule by taking all the activities that were previously identified by your team or by the contractor and try to sequence them back to back with durations, with dependencies, understand which one needs to wait for the other, understand which activity can run at the same time as the other. Once you have a schedule that your boss is okay with, then it's time to develop the project budget. You do know the resources that will be working on it. You do know the resources will tell you what sorts of materials they'll be using on the project. All you need is cost estimates for the resources and for the materials, and you can have your budget. You can even figure out what you'll be spending weekly, monthly, quarterly if you want, and that's going to help you develop your cash flow analysis. The schedule and the budget and the scope, the requirements, all these that we've talked about can later be used to monitor your project and see how your project is going. Having a good plan means you have something you can use to monitor your project. Now let's go to step number 11. Step number 11 has to do with asking yourself what could go wrong on this one project. Now we're talking about risks. What are the risks in your project? What could go wrong on your project? With all these plans that we have, we've identified the stakeholders, and we know some of them can be troublesome. We've identified requirements. We've put together a scope statement. We've created work packages. We've started thinking about outsourcing some of the work. We have a schedule. We know the resources that we're working on it. We know the budgets that have been estimated. What can go wrong on that one project? All right, so sit with your team and try to figure out what could go wrong. And then once you have a list of all the things that could go wrong, the risks, then go to step number 12, mitigate those risks. What does it mean to mitigate? Find ways to reduce the chance that a risk can happen or to reduce the effect if the risk actually happens. Look at the probability that a risk can happen and the impact it would have on your project objectives. If it's not going to affect your project objectives, it is not a risk. Okay, so you need to have a clear understanding of what the project objectives are and then look for the things that could affect them and look for ways to mitigate them. Step number 13 is to update your project management plan with all these mitigation actions. You want to make your project management plan, your scope, your budget, your schedule, your requirements, you want to make them more likely to succeed. And so you're going to change them using the mitigation actions that you came up with. So your mitigation actions need to be added into your project management plan and modified. And once you have the modified project management plan, we go to the final step, step number 14, sit with your boss and review the updated plan. We go through the whole thing, tell them who you talked with, tell them about the requirements you collected, tell them about what scope you've included and excluded, show them who's going to be, what part of the project is going to be outsourced in the WBS, show them, talk to them, tell them what who the resources will be, what sort of a schedule you've developed, your final schedule, and talk to them about the budget requirements, how much they need to fund you on a periodic basis, what were the risks that you've identified, what actions you've taken to mitigate them, who participated in this risk mitigation process, and then the final project plan, and it includes all of your project baselines. A baseline is an agreed to part of the plan, and we usually talk about the scope baseline, the schedule baseline, and the cost baseline. These are the ones that you want to agree to with your boss. Your boss looks at your plan, says everything is good, I love what you did, and you say, all right, can you just sign off on this? Once they sign off, then your baselines have been signed off, and that was step number 14. All right, so now what you have is a fully developed plan and your boss has agreed to it. The next step after this will be to go to execution, but that's for a different video.